Hello, my name is Carlos Mendez and I'm a 3D artist using SOLIDWORKS Visualize. Today in Quick Tips, adjusting the HDRI settings. So these environments, or HDRIs, have a bunch of settings that I'm going to walk you through. So to start off, how do we get some HDRIs? Well, luckily through Visualize, and if you're connected through the web, you should have access to the section they call the cloud. When you click on it, you have a bunch of settings here in the tab in the drop-down menu. So if you click on environments, you'll find a bunch of HDRIs. So all you have to do is just click and drag. If you notice, all the ones with that green check mark are the ones that we already have previously downloaded in the system. The ones that do not have anything are the ones that display this white arrow, and it gives you an option to download. In this case, we already downloaded a couple, and I will show you how to adjust these. So we have a bike here for our example project. So being that it's it's a vehicle, I'm going to select one of these outdoor environments. I'm going to click on gravel pit. So first off, a couple of the things that you see is the background type. We could either choose to show an environment as it is by default, or you can click and you can select a color. Now, this color can be any color you pick by either using this interface here, where we could just drag the hue or the saturation and valley, or we can click on the dropper and drag it over something and release, and you could see it picks that and it uses that as the background color. Really kind of a cool feature here. You can pick anything, and it doesn't have to be on this screen. It really can be on anything. It can be, I can drag it onto this portion here where it samples the green, or it could be that you sample the color of the bike itself. Let's sample some of that red here. Cool. So the next thing would be, we're going to switch back to environment. The next thing would be adjusting the brightness of that environment. You could just drag that, or you can input it. You could also rotate it either by dragging the slider, or you hold Control, Alt, and left mouse button click and drag. Right, it's a lot more intuitive. If we click on the Advanced tab here, it takes us to a whole other section. One of them is the Flattened Floor. If you click on the Flattened Floor, you'll notice how the bike now feels like it's actually sitting on that environment, as opposed to just kind of being floating around. So that helps for that. However, sometimes there's a couple of things that you'd also want to adjust. That what happens is that when you click Flatten Floor, it makes this environment into a sphere. So you need to adjust these two settings. The size, you can see as I drag, the size refers to the size of the environment. So let's put that up to maybe a 50. And the height, referring to from what point what section of this sphere that you now created are we creating that flatness. So let's bring it down to maybe, I don't know, we can do something like that. And now this depends entirely on the environment. So this setting could be different, and it would have to be your call depending on what environment you're using. So the next step I'd like to show you is the reflections. So this whole section here called floor effects, we have caustics, reflection, and roughness. I'll be covering caustics in a later video, but for now I can show you reflection. This would be useful if it's an indoor environment. Maybe if we switch to the Chrome environment, I can show you. I'm going to double click on that. We're going to flatten it like I mentioned, and then we're going to add reflection. Actually, floor shadow, reflection, and we can have roughness. When you do that, you can see how the reflection no longer is crisp. As well as we can tap in floor shadow. And when you enable floor shadow and disable it, you're also disabling and enabling the reflection. So you can see how they go on and off. Now, one last feature that I wanted to talk about is the shadow intensity. By default, you'll find it to be at 1.0. but you can minimize it or you can increase it. Now, this portion of the user interface will be updated in an upcoming release of Visualize, so expect some changes here. But for now, this is how you adjust it. Also, something else that I wanted to say is that make sure you refer to the tutorials on My SOLIDWORKS to give you a more in-depth understanding of how to use Show Grid and how to line it up perfectly with the backplate. All right, guys. Well, I hope this was helpful, and I will be talking to you guys soon.